Welcome to the Raise Your Bars podcast, where it's all about elevating your life one step at a time. With your hosts, Chris Baker and Al Rattan. Together, we're here to guide you through the transformative journey of self-improvement and success. Have you ever wondered what behaviors and actions you need to change to achieve the results and success you desire in life? Well, you're in the right place. Each episode, we dive deep into the strategies, mindset shifts, and practical steps you can take to raise your bars. From personal development to professional growth, Chris and Al share their expertise, experiences, and the occasional tough love, all designed to empower you to reach your full potential. So, whether you're looking to make a big change or simply fine-tune your path to success, grab a seat and let's raise those bars together. Now, let's welcome your hosts, Chris Baker and Al Rattan.
Well, again, welcome back to the Raise Your Bars podcast. Al Rattan here with Chris Baker, and we are on our part 3, I guess, of the top 10 reasons people fail. And for those of you that hadn't heard part 1 and part 2, part 1 was basically poor people skills, and part 2 was a negative attitude. And today we're going to talk about being a bad fit. Being a bad fit. But before we get into that, Chris, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. It's I'm enjoying this series as well, and you know what I encourage people to do as well is not only listen to this, but like actually reflect on it and then see how is it impacting your life? Because as we go through it, I do the same thing, right? I sit and look at it, and I look at it from my perspective, from my team's perspective, you know, from our client's perspective, and it's really uplifting. So I'm good. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to this again. So.
Yeah, and this topic with being a bad fit, I'm sure we both. I mean, I can think of a few people off the top of my head of that I've been in contact with over the years that have been in a position that they're not really suited for.
Yeah.
And you know, it could be because they followed somebody else's dream for their life and they ended up where they are, or it could be they just circumstances brought them there, but they haven't had the courage to step away and look at it from step back and take a look at it and say, hey, is this really something I want to do? And sometimes it's the organization is right and everything's going well, but the leader just doesn't fit the culture of the organization. And so a number of different things can definitely cause some issues, but that's not being a bad fit. But last week we talked about, you know, if your circumstances consistently get you down, then maybe it's time for a change. And then on our thing here, so this again from John Maxwell's book, Failing Forward, we're taking this list from and then sort of adding our own thoughts to it. He says in the book, sometimes a change in situation is also in order. Sometimes a case of mismatched abilities, interests, personality, or values can be a major contributor to chronic failure. And this could not just be personal failure. It could be organizational failure as well.
Right. And it you know, just as you're reading that, I'm thinking about that sort of saying, a change is as good as a rest, right? And sometimes that is what we need. You know, sometimes we get sort of in a rut, and we get to a point where we're maxed out in the impact we can make and the contribution we can make. And whilst that may be a comfortable place to be in because we know everything, we've done it with a go-to person. You know, as John also says, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. Right. So if you are growth oriented, that can actually get you down, right? And I'm sure we've both been in that situation. I know I have before, where it gets to a point where it's like, I need something more, right? I need to move. I need to do something else, even if it's a lateral move. I need to do something else, because otherwise, what happens for me, and I'm sure if it happens for me, it must happen for other people as well. Not everybody, but if I get in that situation, I tend to get stale, right? And then my performance tends to go down. You know, and that's not a good place to be.
No, absolutely not. I can think of 2 examples in my life where I was in a role, and honestly, over time, I mean, quite frankly, we had the business running very well, but I got complacent.
Yeah.
Because I had lost interest, and not. I would say I had actually I would use the word, I was bored. It was no longer a
Mhm.
challenge. Now, could I have found challenges in it? Probably could have,
Right.
right? Probably could have stepped up my game and taken it to even on a higher level. But by that time it had rolled around, I kind of lost interest.
Yeah.
And I wasn't doing myself or my employer at the time any favors by sticking around. I could have stuck around. I could have coasted through and retired at that company very easily, but I chose to make a move to challenge myself and reignite my passion, so to speak,
Mhm.
in what I was doing. And I can think of one other time too, Chris. And I think a bad fit can have, I think a person could be a good fit and then similar to my complacency kicking in, but could become a bad fit over time.
Right.
And this was, this was 2001 to 2008 period of my life. I was the general manager for a big box store here in Canada. And I loved my job at first, but I can tell you about the last year I was at that store, I found myself um, disgruntled, I guess you could say, going through the motions
Mhm.
more than anything else and not really having my heart in it.
Yep.
And I became a bad fit for that store. I found myself, because of my dissatisfaction in my career, the direction I was going, the job in itself, and honestly, some of the customers I had to deal with in a bigger city in Ontario, were, they weren't quite as some people weren't quite as pleasant as they are in rural Manitoba here where I am now. No offense to my Ontario people, I love you all, but um, I was getting angry easy.
Yeah.
And angry at people that didn't really deserve me being angry at them, but because I was so dissatisfied with where things were going, I was becoming angry and taking it out on my team.
Yeah.
I'm just grateful I recognized that soon enough and I sought out another job, and I actually moved from the store level of this big box company to the corporate level, and for 3 years, and that rejuvenated me. It was the change I needed. So this bad fit, a change in situation is sometimes in order.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think the key is the A word that you used, Al, right, which is awareness.
Mhm.
Now you were you got enough about you, and we got enough about you to so that we know that we have that self-awareness, right? And we
Mhm.
suddenly, but it's something you learn, right? And you have to cultivate and nurture. But as a leader, you have to also be aware of what's going on with your team.
Exactly.
And so that self-awareness is one thing. And if you identify yourself that you're in that um rut, you're going through the motions, you're becoming a not a good fit, then what happens if you don't identify that and rectify that is your team start picking up on that, right?
Absolutely.
And then they'll follow the same, right? People do what people see. So you
Mhm.
might be telling them one thing, but if you're consciously or subconsciously doing something different, they're going to follow what you're doing, not what you say. Then you're going to get even more frustrated because it's, hey, why aren't you doing this? And they may or may not talk to you and tell you, but internally they're going to say, well, you're a hypocrite because you're telling us
Right.
to do one thing and you're not doing it yourself. And
Exactly.
so the performance just goes down and down and down,
Mhm.
right? So,
It's a
um,
spiral that you don't that, and it's hard to reverse that course once you start down that path.
right. Right. So that awareness is key. And like you say, you may be a good fit to start with. And somebody may be a good fit to start with, but as they develop and mature and they nurture and they grow, they may grow out of being a good fit.
Mhm.
And as a leader, we owe it to ourselves and to our teams to identify that and recognize that and help them or us advance to an area where it is a good fit, whether
Yeah.
that's upwards, sideways, whatever it is, right? And that
Mhm.
could be inside the organization, it could be outside the organization.
Yeah,
Either
I've made
one is
that decision
okay,
too.
right? A lot
Yeah.
of people will be concerned with, we're obviously in the training field, and they look at training and say, well, why should I spend all this time and money training these people just because they're going to go and leave in the future? And I love the Richard Branson quote it where he says, well, if you don't train them and they stay?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. What damage are you
Right? So
doing?
so what do you wanna do? you
Yeah.
know.
And again, by doing that, you're actually putting a lid on the potential of your organization, and
Correct. And
like
yourself.
and yourself. John talks about that in the 21 Laws of Leadership, putting that lid on ourselves. And I think, I think in a lot of cases, that I mean, a lot of the case, I think we do this to ourselves, right?
Oh,
By having that lack of awareness, by having that lack of vision to see the fact that, hey, my attitudes and my actions are actually destroying the culture within this company instead of growing it and uplifting it.
yeah.
And even though I may have come in with knowledge of what I believe my values are and everything else, just again, we're human beings with feelings and emotions. And sometimes
Mhm.
those emotions and feelings get the best of us and we aren't our best selves.
Right.
And I think it's important for us as leaders, especially to recognize when we're not there, but also recognizing our staff when they are not there living
Mhm.
up to their best versions of themselves, and then having those difficult conversations
Yeah.
to move them forward on the right track or move them out.
Yeah. And I think the communication and connection with your team is crucial in this, right? Because
Mm,
the the other thing that could cause a change in whether that person or whether you are a good fit or not could be what else is going on in your life.
exactly.
Right. So for example,
Like,
you could have somebody who's working um a late shift, right? And they're single, it doesn't matter, they're working a late shift, they work weekends, everything's fine, right? And then they get into a relationship, and maybe their partner works Monday through Friday office hours, and then that relationship turns into a marriage, and now they're in a marriage and their partner is off in the evenings and weekends, but your employee or you are working
mhm,
evenings and weekends,
mhm,
right? Now you may be not a good fit for that position, right?
exactly.
So as a leader, are you connected with your team? Do you understand what's going on with your team and why potentially sometimes performance or attendance or whatever could be affected? It could just be that they're not a right fit for that position anymore
Right.
because
Right.
of what's going on, and therefore, maybe you can find them another position, right? Or maybe it is a move out of the area, but understand that and work with them.
Yeah.
um the other key thing I think, Alan, in this is the recruitment, right? Do we recruit people that are a good fit? I'm just doing a recruiting process at the moment for a position, and when I look at all the candidates, I look at them all, and I'm training somebody else, or not somebody else. Somebody else is in like a leadership development program that I'm leading, and
Mhm.
so I've included that person in the interviews as experience, right? So they
Oh,
can
great.
see
Yeah.
what is the process like. If
Perfect.
they're going to be working with this individual, I said, so I need you to see what
Mhm.
it is, to see the caliber of the people that are coming in, and then to see how do we choose the right fit.
Mhm.
So as I'm looking at that, I look at the skill levels, the capabilities. To be honest, I mean, there's 9 people we've interviewed, and any one of the 9 could do the job, right?
Right.
So the
The
skill
skill
is
set's
there,
there.
the ability is there,
Need the
right?
attitude.
Correct.
Yes.
Right. So I'm hiring for that attitude, and then we'll
Mhm.
train for the aptitude. If they don't know all the systems, it doesn't matter. They're not that complex, right? You
Right.
can learn them.
Yep.
Um, but what you can't train is that attitude, right?
Right.
You
Yep.
can improve it a little bit, but if
Yeah.
it's not
I
naturally there, it's tough.
I personally, I would prefer, hiring the attitude so I didn't have to work on that with the person. There's
Correct.
not enough energy goes into training up and developing the person.
Yeah.
And I think this whole conversation, reminds me of, this whole thing about the wrong, maybe you're frustrated, maybe you need a change. That goes back to part of our bars program, and they're creating the legacy part of things,
Mhm.
reigniting that passion within the entrepreneur that started that business. And a lot of our program, centers around the fact of really rediscovering your passion. What are your values?
Right.
And working on that team charter, with the organizations to help them develop those values.
Yeah.
And again, then when you come back to recruiting, you have it laid out of what type of person you're looking for, because they have to align with what your team charter says, how we
Exactly.
operate as an organization.
Yeah.
All of this works together.
Yeah.
Now, sort of as we're coming in sort of for a landing here, to we're already 14 minutes in, I just want to read this. This is going to be a paragraph out of the book that I'm going to read, folks. And I think it's just a really good series of questions to ask yourself depending on what field you're in. So he says, few things in life are more frustrating than being stuck in a profession or organization that doesn't suit you. And again, maybe the culture within your organization, the vision, the direction of your organization has changed, and it no longer
Mhm.
aligns with who you are as an individual, who you are as, yeah, there's my thumbs up again on the screen. Anyways, who you are as an individual, or who you are, or what your values are. Maybe that's a sign for you that it's your
Yeah.
time to leave, right?
Yeah.
And John says, it's like having to wear shoes that are two sizes too large or too small. Are you a salesperson stuck in an accountant's job? Are you a corporate executive who would rather be raising your children? Are you an engineer who would rather be pastoring a church? Are you an entrepreneur working for an organization whose ideas of progress is moving backwards slowly? Stuck in an organization maybe that does not want to change, and you see the writing on the wall, right? Evaluate yourself and your situation. If there is a poor fit, think about making a change.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, I think that comes back to awareness, right? And honesty. And um, you have to understand who you are and what your values are and what you stand for as well first. So then you can say, does it align with the company or the department or the team that I'm working with? Right.
Right.
Um, and if it doesn't, be honest about it. And then what do? Well, you do something about it. Right. There's too
Exactly.
many people will stay in jobs that they are not a good fit for
Mm-hmm.
just because
They're comfortable,
they're comfortable, right? And
or not
but are they really
uncomfortable enough.
comfortable?
Not
They're
not uncomfortable enough.
correct, right?
Yeah.
They're not uncomfortable enough to make the or to go through the pain, because it can be a pain of looking for another job, interviewing, going and starting another job. It's a little bit scary and so on. You're going into the unknown. So be honest with yourself, and then as a leader, have these conversations with your team, right? Not in as much as like, hey, do you want to go? I don't think you're looking looking like you're suited to this team. Be a little bit more diplomatic than that, right? But understand and get to know your team.
Yep.
Excuse me. Use discommunication styles. Use emotional intelligence. Create those connections, um, and be a leader. Right, be an
Exactly.
influencer, but you've also got to lead by example, because if you can't have these conversations if you're not leading that life yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, lots
Which
to
comes back
unpack
to
on this
being
one.
which comes back to being engaged again, right? If you're
Mhm.
starting to feel yourself become disengaged from your current role, then maybe it's time to examine who you are, where you are, what your values are,
Right,
and try and find a way. And if you think, oh, what, I'm happy here, I've just become a little bit complacent, then reignite that fire somehow
right,
within
right.
yourself to innovate and move forward. And if it's not, then look at exploring and not Chris and I aren't
Options.
telling you to quit your job today, right? We're just telling you to examine your heart. Where are you at, and where do you want to be? And if this place where you're currently at is not bringing you joy and maybe some peace and some happiness and some fulfillment, then maybe it's time to look at a different avenue.
Yeah, no, I just caveat as well, Al, right? Because I don't want people to fall into the trap of always blaming the circumstances, the
Right.
situation,
Good
the
point.
employer, whatever.
Good
You've got
point.
to look within, right?
Mhm.
Because as Al said, if you could be a little bit complacent, a little bit comfortable, why are you feeling that? Right?
Mhm.
What is it within you? And is there something within you that you can change that will reignite that, right?
Mhm.
Maybe you can stretch a little bit, right? Maybe you can employ the law of the rubber band and stretch and put yourself
Mhm.
under a bit of tension to make a change, right?
Right.
Within your team, within your area, within your behaviors and your actions to get the results and success.
Mhm.
Right? Maybe if you're not a leader, but if you feel your leader isn't it, maybe you have that conversation with your leader and you say, hey, I want to do more. I'm feeling stale. I'm feeling
Yeah.
bored. I've got more to give. What can I do to help you? What do you need from me? That
Mhm.
leader may turn around and go, wow, I didn't think that you were interested in that, because you looked like you were just going through the motions, right?
Exactly.
So look inside yourself. It's not always outside that's the challenge,
Yeah.
right? Sometimes
Mhm.
it is,
Yeah.
but sometimes, probably most
Well,
times, it's internal, right?
and 2 times it's been internal for me, right? 2
Yeah.
definite, very memorable times it's been internal for me. So, folks, that's we're gonna wrap it up. We're at 19, just over 19 minutes. But again, we hope you enjoyed this episode of Raise Your Bars. Really look inside yourself this coming week and figure out, am I content where I am? Have I settled? Have I become complacent? And try and reignite that passion that you once had. And if not, then try looking for something that will bring you that passion and
Yeah.
that joy in life. Because guess what? We spend 40 plus hours of our waking hours a week doing our job,
Yeah. Right.
right? And there's got to be some kind of joy and fulfillment in doing that, more than just
Correct.
the paycheck.
Yeah. You
Right?
deserve to be happy and fulfilled and enjoy going up, right?
Exactly.
You should want to go to work, not feel you have to go to work. And
Ex-
again, as leaders, that's what you want from your teams. So,
Yes.
gosh, lots to work on from this topic this week.
All
Love
right.
it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Go have an incredible week. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for tuning in to the Raise Your Bars podcast. If you found value in today's episode, please consider sharing it with your family, friends, and coworkers. We would sincerely appreciate it.